Coming up, a Title IX lawsuit leads Iowa to being the first Power 5 school in the nation to add women's wrestling.
Student government loses its vice president. We have the details about what happens next. And later, Spence Labs cleans up after a small fire yesterday.
Should you be preparing for another heat wave, Hawkeyes? I'll tell you more in weather.
All that and more coming up on this Friday morning edition of DITV News. Don't go anywhere. DITV News starts right now. Good morning and thank you for tuning in. I'm Lauren Johnson and we have breaking news in sports today. Let's toss it to Michael to hear all about it.
Thanks, Lauren. There is a women's wrestling team coming to the University of Iowa after a long battle over Title IX. This started back in the fall of 2020 when a lawsuit was filed by members of the women's swimming team. They accused the Iowa Athletic Department of violating Title IX. This requires that no person can be discriminated against in a sport or activity based on gender. The complaint against the UI was that it did not offer equal athletic opportunities for women. This lawsuit came about after sports like gymnastics, swimming, tennis, and diving were all cut. As part of the settlement of this lawsuit, a women's sport had to be added to the roster. That sport, women's wrestling. For years, the athletic department has been toying with the idea of adding women's wrestling, but because of other circumstances, this decision was made for them.
Were it not for COVID, we wouldn't have cut sports. Were it not for the Title IX lawsuit, I wasn't ready to add women's wrestling yet. But I can tell you that while the timing may be challenging, the decision is awesome. We're excited about it, and we're ready to go forward.
There has been an explosive growth of women's wrestlers across the country over the past couple of years, and coaches and staff are confident that this addition to the athletic department will only reap benefits.
Women's wrestling is awesome. It's great for the women. There's little girls all across the country and the planet that are going to see this. It's that impactful. But let me tell you something about how it impacts the men. It makes the men's program stronger. Women's wrestling, from its inception, has always made men's wrestling better.
Starting this spring, Iowa has plans to start development and construction of the wrestling facility. And the Iowa Athletic Department is still on the lookout for a coach for this new team. The first official season of Iowa women wrestling will not start until 2023.
Thanks, Michael. The unprecedented resignation of undergraduate student government Vice President José Muñiz Jr. was announced by USG President Reagan Smock during the government's Tuesday night meeting. News reporter Ryan Hansen is in the newsroom with more on Muñiz Jr.'s resignation and possible next steps. Ryan, what caused the USG Vice President to resign?
It's still not clear yet why Jose stepped down, but USG President Reagan Smock said he provided many reasons for his resignation in an email to the DI. The DI had previously reported that Muñiz was not a member of the student government prior to his April election as Smock's vice president. So USG now has a big hole to fill at the top of their administration.
And where does USG go to get a new vice president?
Nobody really knows. President Smock called this move unprecedented, and she said that her and other USG members are going to review their bylaws and try and figure things out. But she said that whatever USG does, it'll support students and follow their governing documents. We'll be following USG's next steps very closely as they work to establish a new precedent that we've never seen before.
Thanks, Ryan. The University of Iowa issued a hawk alert Thursday about a fire incident at the Spence Laboratories in the Psychological and Brain Sciences building. Students and staff received an alert to evacuate the building and avoid the area at 3:39 p.m. A second alert announcing that the incident had been resolved was sent at 3:55 p.m. This alert allowed students and staff to resume normal activity. The cause of the fire is not currently known. And healthcare employees at UI hospitals are tiring as the years-long fight against COVID continues. Cases are staying steady in Johnson County, and UI CEO Suresh Gunaskaran is concerned at how the workload is affecting his staff. He said, quote, "We are paying a heavy price in terms of the mental health of our workforce and in terms of the physical workload that they see day in, day out," end quote. He worries about how long healthcare workers can continue to function without tiring out. In better news, vaccine advisors to the Center for Disease Control ultimately endorsed Pfizer vaccine boosters. They will be available for people 65 and older, long-term care residents, and certain people with underlying conditions. However, the advisors ultimately did not recommend boosters for people whose occupation puts them at a high risk of infection. Some members believe that would essentially recommend it for any individual over 18. Although this is not an end-all to the pandemic, most members of the board felt this was a good step. The FDA has yet to decide on Moderna's application for booster shots. And the UI Symphony Orchestra introduced its first female conductor as part of the Wednesday night 100-year celebration concert. French-born conductor and director of orchestral activities Muñiz led the performance, which began with Fanfare for the Uncommon Woman by Joan Towers, a response to the classical score Fanfare for the Common Man. Part of the focus of the concert was to celebrate the diversity of the orchestra and how far the orchestra has come since its founding in 1921. The symphony ended with a piece by Antonin Dvorak, who spent a year living in Spillville, Iowa, where he composed some of his well-known music. By focusing on composition meaningful to Iowa and the ideas of change and expansion, the UI Symphony Orchestra hopes to come back stronger than ever. And the UI's modernization of the Lindquist Center is set to be completed next month. The goal of the project was to make the building more accessible to students and staff and focused on making the student services area feel more centrally located while giving classrooms a much-needed update. The update hopes to make the classrooms more technologically enhanced and flexible. In addition to those projects, the center is also getting a cafe and common area, which the College of Education hopes will bring students together. And it may have felt a little chilly this morning, but let's toss it to Abigail and weather to see if those temperatures will stay.
Thanks, Lauren. The fall weather we've been enjoying won't be here for too much longer, as temperatures will slowly creep up into the mid-80s over the course of the week. Today will be mostly cloudy with a high of 78 and a low of 44 as we creep into the evening. Luckily, Saturday's game will have beautiful sunny skies and a high of 75 degrees. Sunday, it will really start to heat up with temperatures in the mid to high 80s continuing throughout the week. Looks like it isn't quite time for those fall sweaters, Hawkeyes. Now let's head over to Michael for all things sports.
The Hawkeyes are preparing for their match against Colorado State tomorrow, and Iowa is riding high off of a 9-game winning streak that dates back to last season. During this stretch, the Hawks have outscored opponents on average of 34-13. If the Hawkeyes want to continue their dominant streak, it is going to come down to stopping Colorado State's tight end, Trey McBride. Over his last 3 games, McBride has recorded over 100 receiving yards in each game.
And he can move just like a wide receiver. So just knowing that he can provide support in the run game and get out for the pass, and not all tight ends can do that. So
yeah, they're going to get him the ball. They're going to put it in his hands, and he's a really good blocker. He's a big physical guy, but also a really good runner too. So, and they're going to make sure he gets the ball, which that's good coaching.
Slowing down McBride will be easier said than done, but with Iowa's reliable defense, they should have no trouble locking down McBride tomorrow. Check out the Daily Iowan website for a recap of the match and player of the game. And after 18 long months, fans are finally back in the stands reliving Iowa's traditions. DITV sports reporter Lucy Friedel has more on what full stadiums mean to the players. The second-ranked Hawkeyes are off to a hot start with an 8-0 record and look to push it to 9. Fifth-year senior Ellie Holly leads the team in goals and assists. Holly welcomes the pressure of a high ranking, but at the end of the day knows that to win tomorrow, it will come down to perfecting their fundamentals.
Thanks for tuning in to DITV Now. We'll be back next Friday with more. From Iowa City, I'm Lauren Johnson. Have a great day.